Okay. So if you remember, I mentioned earlier in our study of Shabbat the story, and I found the actual quote. So the story is about Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin, the first yeshiva in the way that the yeshivas are today. And he came into the Beis Midrash on Shabbos, and he found some of the students just talking idle gossip, and first of all, that's forbidden in a Beit Midrash. But he said, you better, this is a free translation, you better go to sleep for the afternoon and keep the Shabbat, the acronym for Shina b'Shabbat Ta'anug, sleeping on Shabbat is a pleasure. And one of the students, I think, chutzpahly answered, Rabbi, and I say that Shabbat is a different acronym, Sicha b'Shabbat Ta'anug, conversation on Shabbat is a pleasure. And Rabbi Chaim Volozhin very smartly answered about you that the book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes says, Lev chacham nimeno velev ksila smalo. The word sicha has the shin with the dot on the left side, and the word shena, the dot is on the right side. And so he was basically rebuking him for talking on Shabbat instead of doing the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat, which is through sleep and good food. And we discussed earlier the Torah study, and tomorrow we'll discuss the special prayers of Shabbat. So, with that story, which, like I said, it could be seen as positive or negative, but bottom line is there is a mitzvah. It's most likely what's called divrei Kabbalah, that the rabbis just understood that that's part of Zachor Yom Shabbat Agadsho. So included in the mitzvah of Oneg Shabbat is sleeping soundly, as the popular proverb has it. Sleeping on Shabbat is a pleasure, but it is not proper for one to sleep on Shabbat in order to work Saturday night. So if it's only preparation, so you can stay up late on Motzei Shabbos, that is forbidden. Doing this subordinates Shabbat to the weekday. One should not even sleep on Shabbat in order to study Torah Saturday night, because by doing so, he loses precious holy time on Shabbat, during which Torah study is weightier than learning done during the week. Because the Shabbat is Me'en Olam Haba, it's a likeness of the next world, and in the next world we believe that everybody learns at their level, but the reason why we learn the Ilui Neshama to elevate the soul is because this way they can go to a higher level based on the Torah study that we do here. Similarly, it is not proper for one to work extra hours on Thursday and Friday and plan to make up for his lost sleep on Shabbat. On the contrary, it is mitzvah to spend the weekdays preparing for Shabbat. One should prepare food for Shabbat, clean the house, do the laundry, and bathe. Certainly included in Shabbat preparation is making the effort to begin Shabbat in a well-rested state rather than an exhausted one. And I can't tell you how many of my friends in Yeshiva fell asleep during the half-hour drasha on Kabbalat Shabbat. And so we would joke that the people who left before the Dvar Torah started have to come in, and the people who were stayed for the Dvar Torah have to go out and wash their hands because they napped for half an hour, which is the minimum amount for sleep. And so this allows one to focus on study and prayer and to properly enjoy the Shabbat meals. Only if one worked extra hours on Thursday and Friday due to factors out of his control that left him no other choice may he catch up on sleep over Shabbat, but one may not plan things that way. So just for example, in terms of practical, in Har Bracha, there's always a Vasikin minyan, a netz, so even on Shabbat and even on Yom Kippur. So if your usual minyan is that early one, but you were so exhausted, and now if you go to that minyan at 4:30 in the morning in the summer, you'll have to sleep extra hours on Shabbat afternoon, then yatzas charo b'efsedo. Your reward for waking up at that hour is going to be overridden by the fact that you're wasting your hours sleeping on Shabbat. So if you worked hard and you need extra hours, so take them on Friday night, and that way go to the later minyan, and then the rest of Shabbat will be enjoyable. I believe that was also our custom in the yeshiva, that if we couldn't stay up all of Shavuot night, the rabbis actually said, go to sleep, about 2 hours before the time of Shacharis. That way you're not contradicting your plan, and then wake up for the later minyan and have the meal properly. And so it goes back to this idea of balancing those hours. Saying sleep on Shabbat is a pleasure means that if one generally sleeps 7 hours a night, he should sleep for 8 hours on Shabbat, so he will be better rested and refreshed. But it does not mean that Shabbat should, God forbid, become the weekday's servant by serving as time when people can make up for sleep missed during the week. So that's basically the balance and how to figure it out. In terms of afternoon naps for men, there are various customs. Rambam records that pious people would wake up early on Shabbat morning, pray Shacharit and Musaf, return home for the second meal, study in the Beit Midrash until late afternoon, pray Mincha, and eat Sudah Shlishit, the third meal, until the end of Shabbat. However, some poskim write that one who is accustomed to sleep in the afternoon does not have to skip their nap because sleep is included in Oneg Shabbat. Of course, one must be careful that he not sleep so much that he is unable to dedicate time to study, for we have already learned in section A1 that on Shabbat at least 6 hours must be dedicated to Torah study. So if one sleeps longer on Shabbat afternoon, he must learn more Torah on Friday night after the Shabbat meal or earlier on Shabbat morning. So there's many communities that there's a class before Shacharis, there's a class or a Oneg after Friday night meal, and so basically try to find the right one for you and make that your usual practice on Shabbat. And last but not least, one must be careful not to eat too much at the meals because overeating makes people very sleepy and is not truly pleasurable. Though one enjoys the taste of the food while eating, afterward one feels heavy, exhausted, and often also depressed because all the body's resources must be mobilized to digest the excessive quantity of food. After eating like this, one has no energy to focus on studying or even on having deep, beautiful conversation with family members. Therefore, one must be very careful not to overeat, so the meal and its delicacies add energy and liveliness to one's Torah study, and again, making those our priorities. One who nevertheless becomes tired after eating should sleep for a bit and then arise energetically to study Torah and spend time with the family. And we'll stop here.